if for some reason somebody, like famous sees my tank top and is like, I want one of those, and they get lots of people interested in my self-drafted tank top, it'd be nice to already have the starting point of the numbers to make a pattern. Hello, Viber friends, and welcome back to the Made Up in Awana Knits YouTube channel and to a new episode of the Hilo Stitch podcast. So today I'm going to be talking about all of my winter WIPs that I am putting into hibernation and a couple of new spring cast-ons, as well as one new acquisition that I am not sure what to do with. So if any of that sounds like it will be of interest to you, I hope you will stick around. All right, hello again, friends. We're gonna kick things off by talking about one whole finished object and then a whole bunch of works in progress. First, what I am wearing. This is my Monte Rosa cardigan. This is a pattern by Isabel Kramer. This sweater is about 10 years old, and I think it's the oldest sweater I have that I am still wearing. So I definitely knit some sweaters before this, but either they no longer fit or they're no longer my style or what have you. But this one is still here. It is knit in Dream in Color. I want to say Smooshy. It's whichever one is the worsted weight. I can never remember. And I'm also wearing my Orioles baseball t-shirt because it is opening day. Happy opening day if you are a baseball fan. All right, let's get into the fun stuff. So I have one finished object to share today, and it is actually a crochet project. It is my first crochet finished object. So as I said, this is my first crochet finished object. It's not the first crochet project I've ever done. I think it's second. So the first one was or is a blanket that I am still slowly working on. So this is obviously basically just two giant granny squares joined together at the sides and bottom, and then a handle is crocheted on. The handle definitely doesn't look great, and you can see I have been using this. It is kind of rolling inward. It's fine. It's supposed to be a usable thing, and it is a usable thing. I definitely think that moving forward, I need to make sure I go up a hook size. I'm really having a lot of trouble tensioning yarn. I'm a right-handed knitter, a thrower, so carrying the yarn in my left hand doesn't feel natural, and I'm still struggling with how to make it feel like I'm not constantly yanking at the yarn, and I think I am crocheting rather tightly, so I will try to keep that in mind for the future. So the yarn is, this one was like the Joanne in-house like knit and crochet brand, which is obviously gone now. I still have a couple of balls of this. And then the other two I think are Lion Brand 24/7 cotton, I think. So I definitely like working with the Lion Brand better than the Joanne, and you can see this is the Joanne yarn, and it's just kind of it's already kind of fuzzing and pilling a little bit. I think the Lion Brand cotton may be mercerized, I'm not sure. But even though they're both worsted, I definitely think the Lion Brand cotton is a little thinner. So it doesn't matter, so much for this, but something to keep in mind if I were not already working on a project that was fairly open. I think the gauge between the two is a little different. I already made the mistake of putting a chapstick in here. I thought it was big enough. It wasn't like a chapstick, it was a tube. And I thought it was big enough, but it escaped. So the joining method for the two granny squares is not, it kind of leaves little openings. It's not like completely like a solid seam. Which again works fine for what this is, but I think I was a little too confident in the size of that chapstick. And it is I keep calling it chapstick. Again, it's not. It is a lip balm, and it is the Jack Black brand, and I love it. It's the only lip balm I really like now. So my very first finished crochet project. This is going to be really cute just to carry stuff around. I took it the other day when I chaperoned my youngest son's field trip to the nature center, and his teacher said she really liked it. Very convenient for just kind of toting stuff around. Obviously can stretch quite a bit. You know, if you need to put stuff in here, it's pretty flexible. And as you can see, I swapped colors on opposite sides. So this one has one of the kind of browny gold and two teal, and then this one has the opposite. The handle was supposed to be the same white, but I didn't have enough of it, so I just went with the blue. So this is a really quick and easy project. I think it was good for learning granny squares. I really did not have any major issues with it. You know, most of it, any difficulties I have are just the fact that I've, you know, only been crocheting for a year and I don't really know what I'm doing. But I am happy to have it done. And then I have one half finished object, which is that I finished one of my Christmas plain vanilla stripy Christmas socks. So I said I was just going to kind of keep working on these during the year to keep the spirit of Christmas alive. And I do have one done. So this is some old post self-striping. This yarn is not manufactured anymore. I also no longer have the label, so I don't really have anything much to say about it. It is kind of a toothier yarn, so it's definitely not a superwash merino. I'm not sure what it is. It's a little heftier than kind of a regular like 80-20 merino sock yarn. So it has a little bit of texture to it. I think it'll be hard wearing. I do have another pair of socks, not in this color obviously, but in this yarn somewhere. Or at least one. I may have lost one. I don't know. But again, they don't make this anymore, so it doesn't matter too much. So I will probably not cast on the second one right away, because obviously I'm not going to be using these until November. But I do like looking at it. I really love these colors. I love kind of the mix of the traditional like red and green Christmas, and then that sort of very 60s pink and pale aquamarine kind of color pair as well. And I do have my little Christmas progress keeper on there too. So I'm as bad as my children and just wishing it could always be Christmas. So those are the only things I have finished. But I do have a bunch of WIPs that I'm going to show you. So the first thing I'm going to show you is my other crochet WIP, because I need help. My other crochet WIP is the Stevie Bum Bag. And as you can see, I have finished quite a lot of it. So it is 4 granny squares sewn together here, and then folded kind of in half on the diagonal for the sides. All good. Love it. Very cute. And then there is this little flap that is going to go on the front. And I had to knit this twice because I had accidentally. So the granny squares are not identical. Some have pink at the start and some have purple. And I intended to put the ones with the pink start in the middle. And I didn't. I put them on the sides. So I had originally crocheted the flap with pink in the middle, and I had to redo that. And as you can see, I have done it, but I haven't woven in any of the ends. There's so many. This is the absolute worst part of crochet, granny squares, and I don't like it at all. Please, I mean, probably there's a better way. If there's a better way, please tell me. So I have done that. Now I'm supposed to be crocheting the strap because it's a crossbody bag. Every time I have tried, and you can probably see, you're supposed to attach it at the corner, and I have tried it on both corners because they were starting to get loose. This one too, it's even worse. It's starting to get loose because I tried it so many times, and no matter what I do, it doesn't look right. I don't know what I am doing wrong. So it's basically you join the yarn, you single crochet across 4 stitches, turn, slip stitch back. That's it. But for some reason, it doesn't look like the pattern photos. It doesn't, when I'm trying to single crochet into the row of slip stitch, I can't figure out where I'm supposed to insert my hook. Everything seems very dense. I don't see any little V's where I'm supposed, like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So if you can think of what I might be doing wrong, please tell me. So this is the same Joann's yarn that's no longer available. Actually, do have the thing. So this is their premium yarn knit and crochet, and it's a premium yarn knit and crochet essential 100% cotton, and it is a worsted weight. So I guess this is all gone now, but the pink is called Rose Garden and the purple is called Lavender Field. And I actually really like this color combo, and I've obviously got plenty of it left. I do need to use the purple to do the strap, but other than that, I can definitely use this for maybe another granny square project. But I'm about to throw this thing in the trash because it's driving me crazy. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. This is, the pattern doesn't have any like tutorials or anything with it. It has some pictures, which are somewhat helpful, but yeah, I cannot figure out what I am doing wrong. So if anything I've said sounds like you think you know what I'm doing wrong, please let me know. All right, that is all the crochet. Let's actually start talking about some knitting. Usually what happens this time of year is I gradually lose interest in all of my sweater projects, kind of unintentionally set them aside, don't make any notes about where I was or what I was doing, and then I come back to them in the fall or in the late summer and have no clue what's happening. So this year I decided to do something different, which was to work all of my projects to a natural stopping point. There are 4 of them. And make notes so that I can come back to them. And I've decided that I'm going to come back to them when we have come back from our summer vacation. So this year we are going to Williamsburg, which I absolutely love, Colonial Williamsburg. And we're going to be doing that in July. And then when we come back, I will put my winter sweater projects back on the needles. But I'm going to show you where they all are now. Here is my bag of half-finished sweaters, my favorite Merino Noir bag. So the first one is the one I've accomplished the least on, but of course that is because I ripped it out and restarted it. So this is what is now my mashup of the Rowena pullover and the Norma Jean turtleneck, both by Fable Knitwear. So I had originally started this as the Rowena pullover, which is a bottom-up ribbed pullover. It was not coming out what I thought was the correct size, and I was really not looking forward to having to join everything in the round at the yoke, because you have to knit the sleeves, and I hate doing that. So I swapped it out for the Norma Jean, which is a top down with a similar silhouette, but that one has a stockinette body. However, I am using a 1x1 rib. So what I have done here is to work to what, according to the pattern, is the top is enough of the shoulder. This should be the full length. This does not look like it is the correct length. But that is a problem for fall Kristen. She will worry about that then. For now, I have simply worked to what the pattern says. When the fall comes, I will actually try this on, figure out if I need to continue, because you are shaping the shoulder by working increases and decreases along what is essentially a teeny, teeny, tiny saddle that will lay across the top of the shoulder. My hair is in my microphone. Again, That's a problem for fall, Kristen. But that was a natural stopping point according to the pattern, so that is where I have left it. This is being worked in Knit Picks Gloss. All right, next up we have my Calm Down cardigan. This is a pattern by Lily Kate France that I am working in Knit Picks City Tweed DK. So I have worked to the bottom of the armhole. That looks like a really deep armhole, doesn't it? It really does. I mean, it is supposed to be deep, but I mean, the sleeve is going to pull it in, hopefully. But that looks almost like a bat wing. That's so deep. But nevertheless, I have worked to the bottom of the armholes, joined in the, or not joined in the round because it's a cardigan, but joined the fronts and back. So now it will be ready to just continue working the body when the end of my vacation comes and I am ready to think about fall. So I had talked about this previously. The saddle construction on this was a little unconventional for me, but you know, just not what I'm used to, but perfectly fine. The yarn is working up okay. It's looking a little, I mean, it is a very tweedy yarn, but it does also look like it's starting to fuzz a little bit, which is fine. It can be a little bit of fuzzy. This base does have some alpaca in it, so that is not unexpected. I just hope it is not a sign of pilling to come. So Calm Down cardigan, worked to the bottom of the armholes. After that, we have my Roma cardigan. This is a pattern by Mochi Knits. Also worked to the bottom of the armholes. So you can see this is like this armhole is like half as long as the other one. So this pattern is just worked in a slip stitch, a slip stockinette stitch. So you can see how that ends up looking. Normally you just see this kind of on a heel of a sock, but it's really interesting for a sweater, just giving it a little bit of extra texture. It has these kind of bold shaping lines on the back shoulder, and everything's kind of curling inward, of course. But here is the shaping for the front neck. So also joined to the bottom of the armholes and ready to work the body. This, I am using some kind of yarn. I am using Valley Yarns Westfield. This is 60% extra fine merino, 20% silk, 20% yak. The color is stone, so a really nice neutral. I haven't had no problems with the yarn itself. Like it's nice to work with. It's very soft. It has a little bit of a halo. But I have now gone through several balls and almost all of them have had knots. And some of them have had multiple knots. And it's only 120 yards. It should not be having 2 knots per 120 yard ball. So that part I cannot recommend because that's annoying. Nobody wants extra, ends to weave in, and because of the composition, which with that silk is not, you can't really do like a spit splice. So I'm annoyed about that part, but the sweater itself and the yarn itself is quite lovely. So this is a DK weight yarn, I think. Let me see, 120 yarns. It's kind of sort of between a DK and a worsted. But because you're doing that slip stitch, your underside is getting that extra strand of yarn as you're slipping, which is making this a very squishy and extra thick fabric. So that will be lovely for cold weather. And then my last winter WIP that I'm putting on hold is my Yoon pullover. And this one also worked right down to the armholes. Ugh, come on, you. There we go. So this is, I am really looking forward to this. This is big, squishy, cozy neckline. And then it has this just sort of, nothing super fancy, but just like an extra bold kind of raglan line. The body of this is only worked in the round for a short couple of inches, and then it's split into a really deep split hem. So I'm really just looking forward to having this as a really cozy, easy to throw on sweater in the fall. And the yarn I'm using for this is also Valley Yarns. Valley Yarns Beckett, 50% superfine alpaca, 50% wool. So this is nice and soft, but it does have a little bit of tooth to it. So it's not a merino wool, but you're getting lots of, soft alpaca, and it does have a nice halo as well, if that wants to, there you go. And I absolutely love this color, which is, it's more or less accurate. It might be a little bit tealer in real life, but it is lovely. Those are all of my fall sweaters, and I have intentionally put them all on hold, made notes of needle size, anything else that fall Kristen might need to know, and they will be ready to go back on the needles, as I said, in the late summer, because there is no point in working on a bunch of sweaters to get finished in like June and then not be able to wear them for 4 months. That would be very disappointing. So fall is on hold. But now it is spring, so we are ready for some spring projects. The first one I'm going to show you is actually one I was working on last year and then put on hold. So this is my summer slipover, and I have recently finished the back. I will put the name of the designer in the description box, as well as a link to the pattern, obviously. So this is sort of a layering piece. Hopefully I will have this done relatively soon. I have already started the front. I don't need to show it to you because it looks just like the back, but it will have some neck shaping close to the end. That's really the only difference. So this, you can see, has some very nice textures being worked in a, what do we call this? Like a mock rib, where you one side is knit and the other side is worked in a knit one purl one rib. And then it does have a standard rib at the bottom. I used a alternating cable cast-on, which I think looks really nice and neat and tidy for this pattern. And then it has, so like I said, this is the back. The front basically looks the same, but with some neck shaping. And then it ties at the side. So it's just going to be something to layer on over, you could pair it over a dress, wear it over a t-shirt, something like that. I am using Knit Picks woolen cotton. So that's a 50-50 cotton wool. So hopefully we'll be able to get away with wearing this into May. This yarn is lovely. It mostly feels just like knitting with wool. You can, it has a little bit more texture to it as you're working with it, but, and it has a little bit less sort of, I don't know, that woolly quality. I don't know how to really explain it. But mostly it feels like knitting with wool. It just is, the yarn is just a little bit denser. It doesn't have quite so much air in it. And you can see, it has lots of nice drape. I believe the pattern is written for a 100% wool, so I've just switched to a wool cotton to make it a little bit airier, a little bit more breathable, and hopefully extend the life of it. Because if it were 100% wool, that would really, there's so very few situations where I would want to wear 100% wool sleeveless something. It's very small. So once I actually sat and focused on this, it started going really quickly. So I think really just in the last week, I did the decreases and then knit all the rest of it. So I don't know what the problem was last year. It does have like a slip stitch edge that I just did not seem to be able to memorize what it was very simple too. There's nothing like rocket science about it, but I just could not seem to get into my head when I was supposed to knit and when I was supposed to slip, either at the beginning of the row or the end of the row. And I kept having to check, and it was not clicking with my brain when I first started this project. Once I got a handle on it, it started moving quickly. I have already finished the bottom ribbing on the front and started the main body. So hopefully by the next episode, I'll be sharing this. So that's not really a new cast on, but it is a spring project. What is a new cast on? So if you watch my video on the spring warm weather patterns I was interested in and trying to work from stash, I think it's up here, could be over here, but I think it's up here. You will remember that I wanted to work on the pie camisole, so I have cast that on. I opted to do it in the Amana Yarns Jasky. Here is what that looks like. So it is a 60% superwash merino wool, 30% Pima cotton, 10% linen. So again, this is going to be a project that hopefully with a blend of wool and plant fibers will be light enough that I can wear into May and then maybe again in September. We shall see how that works. So surprisingly, even though this one has more wool and less cotton than the Knit Picks yarn I was just talking about, this one feels a little more cottony to me. I'm not sure why. And you can also see that this has some more kind of a heathered texture in it. That may be because of the linen fiber as well. So all three fibers will take the dye a little bit differently. But it is still fine to work with. So as usual, I didn't really, like I saw the pie camisole and I was like, ooh, I want one of those. And I didn't really investigate much about it other than the yarn weight until I actually had bought the pattern. It said, fingering weight yarn. Okay, I got a fingering weight yarn. The pattern is written for wool, so I knew I wanted to do something that had some wool, but not 100% wool. But it turns out this is worked at a really fine gauge. So I am knitting this. This is a US 1.5. I'm knitting this on a US 1.5, which is a 2.5 millimeter needle. Despite that, I've got a fair bit going. It's obviously curling a lot. So this is the front, and I am working down toward the armholes. I probably have another inch or maybe a little bit more, maybe 2 inches to go until I have finished that. And so I did make a modification on this, which is that looking at a lot of I like the piece, but looking at a lot of the finished projects, the front neck just goes straight across, but it has a ribbed collar. And so the result is that right here in the middle, that ribbing often doesn't sit flat, which is fine if that's what you're going for, but it didn't look intentional. It just looked a little bit sloppy. So what I decided to do was to add some short rows to curve the front of the neck downward so that hopefully that little bit of the ribbing in the front would lie flat. I didn't do a lot. Again, it's curling a lot, so it's hard to tell. But you can see now I've just added a little bit of a curve. So the tricky part with this is that if you are knitting top down in the round, you will add short rows by kind of working around to the front of the neck, almost to the middle, and then back around to the other side, almost to the middle. And then a little shorter and a little shorter and a little shorter each time, which is going to create a curve. But if you're not working in the round, you can't you can't do it that way. So what I needed to do, and this is the same thing that I do in my Winter Mammoth pullover, is I worked to the middle and worked a short row, and then worked a little bit, and then worked a little bit, and then worked all the way across, and then repeated it on the wrong side in this direction, just to create, I think I did like 3 on each side, just to create a tiny bit of a curve. I could also add short rows to the collar eventually when I get there, if I feel like it's still not curving enough. Working short rows and ribbing is more of a pain. So we're trying this first and we'll just see how it goes. But again, this, I was hoping again to have this done maybe in time to wear it, even though it has a little bit of wool. However, given the very fine gauge, working on a US 1.5 needle, this is not going, and flat, this is not going particularly quickly. So I don't know if that's actually going to happen. I'm going to keep going at least for a little bit. But yeah, I had I been paying attention and realized that this was such a fine gauge, I may not have opted for this project right now. Because again, the chances of this getting done in time to actually wear before the weather gets warm are rapidly dwindling the longer it takes to work at this gauge. It's not, this would not have been my preference, but there it is. So that is the only new project of the spring projects that I had previously talked about. And we'll get into why that is in a little bit. But those are all my current WIPs. I'm doing a bit of design work still, which means that I do have one sweater on the needles, because if I want to get it designed or the sample knit and tested and tech edited in order to publish it for the fall, I need to finish it relatively soon. So I recently put this back on the needles. This is a pullover, obviously, that I have been working on. I had originally hoped to publish it in the fall. And once I realized that I was not going to be able to finish the sample and do the testing, and just started to feel like I was putting a lot of pressure on myself for something that, again, is not my job anymore. It's just something I'm doing for fun. I decided to put it aside and pick it back up in the spring, so that if I start working on it again now and I finish this sample in May, it can be tested through the summer, and then in late August, early September, when people are starting to think about their fall projects, then it's ready to go at the right time. So I am knitting this saddle shoulder. I really like the saddles. In Durarum Natura Ulisse. Durarum Natura Ulisse in the colorway Arable, or if it's French, maybe it's Arable, I don't know. So I have, as seems to be the trend with my sweaters, I have recently joined the body and the round. And then what I had done, I had put this on hold, as I said. And then when I put my winter sweaters away, I had the needles ready. So I put this back on the needles for the body. But then I thought maybe I should do the collar and sleeves first. Because that's going to give me, the collar is going to pull the body up a little bit. The sleeves are going to close the armhole a little bit. And that's all going to give me a better idea of how the top fits and then how long I want to work the body. You can, yes, your gauge and your grading are going to tell you mostly what you need to know. But still, you're going to get a better picture just by actually working the sample. There's just some things you can't factor into mathematical considerations. So I want to put a big ribbed collar that folds over on this. And the sleeves, the saddle pattern is going to continue down the sleeves. The rest of the sleeve is going to be plain stockinette. I can't remember how I originally envisioned the sleeves. If I envisioned them like full length, if I envisioned them, like puffed or wide bell sleeves. I can't, like 3/4 length. I cannot remember what my original ideas were for this. So I think what I might do is go ahead and do the neckline. And I could probably still leave the body on the needles because I'll use a smaller needle for the neckline anyway. and then maybe go from there. So I know I wanted the body to be a little bit cropped and kind of A-line shaped. I really can't remember what I thought for the sleeves, and I can't find, like, I probably sketched it out somewhere and I cannot find it. So I don't know. If you have an opinion, you be sure to leave a comment and let me know. But I really love the cables on this. I love a good all over cabled sweater. And I really wanted to make sure I was giving it the attention, not rushing through. So hopefully this will be uh, finished in May and ready for testing. If that is something that is of interest to you, I generally send test calls to my newsletter. And the link is in the description box, or I'm going to try this new thing where I put this QR code here and you can scan it and it'll take you to the newsletter sign up. Hopefully that's going to work. If not, it's in the description box. So that if you're interested in testing, that's probably the best way to find out, although I'll probably mention it here as well. So that is back on the needles. And another thing that is back on the needles, yarn in my face, is this very long suffering top that I think we're finally there. If you have not watched this video about my mislabeled yarn saga, that's where you can catch up on this story if you would like. But essentially, I bought a skein labeled Equinox Sport at Magpie Fibers last Sheep and Wool weekend, and attempted to design something with it, knowing in my heart of hearts, because I had used Equinox Sport before, that this yarn was too heavy. It was not right. So eventually I brought the correct yarn. I checked. And then I just put everything away because summer was over. And now we are back with our correct yarn. So this is Magpie Fibers Equinox Sport in the colorway Bougie Beaver, I want to say. And we have restarted. Oh dear. So, and this is actually not even the first time I've done this, because I wasn't paying attention to my own grading sheet sitting right in front of me, which said after you work this horizontal braid here, you need to decrease 20 stitches all the way around. And I didn't do that. So then I had to pull that all out. But here we are. So this is a bottom up it will be a little sleeveless top with shoulder ties, and it has this, as I said, horizontal braid detail around the hem. It will have a little bit of an A-line shape. The body will be mostly stockinette, and it will have some cute shoulder ties and some nice neckline shaping with probably just a slip stitch edge. Very casual, floaty, breezy for summer. This really is a lovely yarn. It is. So I believe the Sport is the same, just heavier. Silk and linen. So I believe the Sport is 60-40 silk and linen, and the worsted is 65-35 silk and linen, but something along those lines. It's a lovely yarn. It is, as you can see, it is light and drapey, and it has some nice sheen from the silk. It is just beautiful to work with. It's very soft, and I have done a project in this, not a design, but a project in the yarn before, and it really is very comfortable to wear in the summer. So this one as well will at some point be ready for testing. This will obviously be a much faster project than the all over cabled sweater. As I said, the body's going to be mostly stockinette. So the big thing with this will be working out how I want to join the shoulders. I want them to have ties for a couple of reasons. One, I just think it looks cute, but as I had mentioned in last week's video, I believe, cotton, linen, silk, because they don't have as much of the grip and recovery of wool, tend to stretch out with wear. But if you have ties, then that's going to make your top a little bit more adjustable. So if it does start stretching out, you can just tie it a little tighter and it's still going to fit just fine. But I haven't quite gotten like really figured out how I want to do that, make the ties. So we'll get there. But again, if test knitting is something that interests you, you can sign up for my newsletter to make sure you get notified about that. So those are the two kind of design projects I am currently working on. So I am on a yarn budget diet now, working all from my stash as we sort out some family, employment, collapse of democracy issues. And so I'm not buying yarn. I'm really trying hard not to, and Knit Picks keeps sending me, coupon codes and things. But I did get one new yarn, which was provided by Hobbii. Still jury's out on the pronunciation. I don't know what it is. For an upcoming, partnership campaign, and that is this Rococo linen. So this is, I know it's here somewhere. Here we go. 36% viscose, which is rayon, 34% cotton, and 30% linen. And it is 297 yards to 100 grams. So they're saying fingering, that's a little heavy for fingering, or so I was thinking when I ordered it. And then I got it. And at first, you can see it looks a little bit marled, which is lovely. I think that's really nice. So this color is, okay, so the color is 12, whatever that is, if you want to look it up on their website. But, and this is going to be a little hard to show. So it says fingering, but yeah, I think you can see. This is a very thick and thin yarn. I don't know what the exact construction is, but you can see like right here, this is a very bit hefty. And then you go down here and it's quite thin. So I originally got this to work on one of the spring patterns that I had pointed out in my spring warm weather pattern video. I was originally thinking the moon glow top, which calls for, it says DK, but it calls for a light fingering plus a lace weight, which I would not categorize as a DK. So that was my original idea. Then I saw this and I was like, well, it's pretty marled. I'm not sure if it's going to work for that because it has a lot of eyelets and lace patterning, and I think it might get lost. And so I was thinking about it for some of the other projects, but then I was noticing this very thick and thin texture. So I did swatch, and here is what it looks like. So it has some nice kind of sheen to it, which I really like. But you can definitely see this is a very thick and thin. Like there are definitely parts that look a little bit nubby, where whatever the construction of this yarn. So it has 3 fibers, and it seems like, I mean, I don't know for certain, but it looks like one of the fibers, or possibly 2, is kind of in one ply, and another fiber is another ply, and then they're plied together. So the result is this kind of nubby, textured looking fabric. So I knit this on, it says, what does it say? I want to say it says to do it on a US 2. It says to try it on a US 2.5, which I just didn't have. So I swatched flat on a 3. And this is the result. So the other thing is, this is already, I don't know if you can kind of tell on camera, but this is already pretty see-through at this gauge, which is, again, using a US 3 needle. So basically it's not going to work for any of the spring stuff that I wanted to do. It's too textured to work for a lot of the more patterned things, and it is too, working it at a sort of loose gauge like some of the other tops that are more stockinette, it's going to end up being too see-through. So I was looking all day yesterday on Ravelry trying to find a project, that would work for this. So I was originally, something I kind of recently added to my queue is the Darjeeling top, which is mostly stockinette, but it's knit on like a US 7 or something. And it would be too open. So I'm kind of back to the drawing board on this, except what I was thinking about doing, which is not something I had been considering like at all, was just kind of creating my own thing based on a pattern that I published last year. So this is the Amankai tea. I published this in the fall. It is knit in Camellia Fiber Company, flax fingering, which is an alpaca, linen, silk, I want to say. It's definitely alpaca and linen. I'm not sure about the silk part. I don't remember. And it's a lovely, mostly plain t-shirt with some nice shaping details and some nice, it has a couple of the horizontal braids. So I thought, what if I kind of start from this jumping off point? I narrow the back neck because it kind of has like a wider, a little bit of a scoop neck. I narrow the back neck. I still do the shaping for the shoulders, but I stop at the top of the shoulders. And then I pick up for the front, just like I did for this t-shirt, but I make a V-neck. So it's a closer fitting V-neck instead of a wider scoop neck. And then it's a sleeveless top. And then the bottom is just basically the same. Because I think that would work really well with this textured kind of marled fabric. The fabric is really going to be the thing that stands out. Can't find the grading sheet for the t-shirt. So every time I design a pattern, I have an Excel file to grade the pattern, which uses, a series of formulas that have to be tweaked for different sizes, but some general formulas to determine stitch counts for the entire thing. It's not in the folder where all of the other files for the pattern are. I don't know what happened to it. Not that I would have to publish this as a pattern. I could just make it, this tank top for myself based on my own pattern. That's fine. But it's also nice to have it, if for some reason somebody, like famous sees my tank top and is like, I want one of those. And they get lots of people interested in my self-drafted tank top. It'd be nice to already have the starting point of the numbers to make a pattern. Who knows? It could happen. Still, it would be, even for my own self, nice to have some numbers as a jumping off point. And I don't know what happened to this file. I have no idea. It's infuriating. But that's kind of where I'm leaning now, is that pattern or not, I just kind of work from what I already have to make just sort of a sleeveless top version of that, because I can't find anything on Ravelry that I like that I think is going to work with this yarn, the texture of this yarn, and the gauge I need to work this yarn at in order to not be see-through. Now, one thing I haven't done is look for any crochet projects. That is a possibility. But if you have any suggestions, any pattern ideas, just any thoughts in general about this. So the other thing, of course, is that this has been provided by Hobbii as part of their partnership program. So I have a commitment to use the yarn and make some projects within a set period of time to coincide with their campaign dates. So it's not like I can just be like, okay, I'll just put this yarn aside until I figure it out. No, I gotta get moving. So please share your thoughts. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I could get a little, I could go up to US 4 maybe, but I really think that's about it. Unless I want a see-through shirt for the summer. So, but I'm liking the texture. I'm liking that sort of nubby fabric. Has a little bit of shine. I am enjoying it. I have no complaints about the yarn. I'm just not sure where to go from here, project-wise. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the podcast. If you enjoyed it, I hope you will give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. New knitting videos here every Saturday. If you are looking for me on social media, you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Media Padawana, and I will see you soon in another video. Bye.